Love, light, and blessings. Shamanic Awak Priestess here, and I kind of was wanting to make this video for a while, and I decided why not? I have some quiet time, and that I would make this video. And I wanted to do a witchy chat, and basically the topic that we're going to be discussing today is basically soul deck. I've been thinking about soul decks for a while. And I remember making this video years ago when I first started making content on YouTube. And I had said that the Wheel of the Year was my soul deck. Like for years, this was one of my main working decks. And it was really the deck that got me into tarot because I was using like the Angel Tarot, which some people consider a tarot deck, some people don't, being that it has like, you know, keywords at the bottom and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't using this for professional readings, but I was using this for myself. This is the deck that I was using for professional readings, along with playing cards, psychic oracle, the psychic oracle cards, which are kind of more oracle and tarot at the same time. It doesn't have 78 cards, it has 65 cards and chakra cards, so it's not like a traditional tarot deck. And this was the closest thing I had to a traditional tarot deck. And Robin Wood as well. Robin Wood got me into studying tarot, yes, but this one was the one that I had a dream with. One day I was just dream slash visualization, and I saw these like shadow spirits, pretty much like the box opened up and these cards were in it. I looked for like these images and I found these. I just like typed in keywords on Amazon one day and this popped up, and I was like, oh, this looks like the images I had a dream about. I had similar experience with the Hanson Roberts tarot as well. Like I dreamt of these images, and this was before like I've never seen these two decks on tarot tube before, so they were literally like my intuition and my guides led me to these two decks. And for years I've worked with these decks exclusively for client readings and things like that. You know, for those of you that don't know, I'm a full-time tarot psychic reader. So this deck really made me like study like, you know, tarot on a deep level and things like that, because prior to that it was, you know, cartomancy and everything like that. It was, you know, playing cards and this deck, you know, and things of that nature. So I wanted to make a video that I wanted to relook at the term soul deck because I have some new thoughts on it. And I think like anything with spirituality, like our thoughts evolve over time. And I don't really think that the Wheel of the Year, I would consider it these days a soul deck. And I just wanted to make like a video to explain my thoughts on this. And I would love to have a discussion in the comment section of my videos. I really do want to start making more tarot related content, as well as my other content that talks about the ATRs and other controversial topics. I sent out the format for my memberships that I'm doing next week. We're going to have a live stream on the 24th, so 4 days from now. So I'm literally working on that and creating content for you guys. So I'm excited. And things like that. We have 3 membership tiers, so I'm excited about the different things I'm going to offer members on my channel and things of that nature. So that's going to be launching, as well as my Espiritismo mediumship classes that I'm going to be launching and having for sale on the 24th of this month. So literally I'm going to be going live in 4 days. I'm going to make sure that I post that on my community page so you guys could set reminders and things like that, so we can all be in the same space on Monday and do another launch party for another set of classes. So I'm excited about that. But getting back to the topic at hand. So yeah, my interpretation of soul decks has completely changed, and things like that. So I no longer consider this a soul deck. I consider the decks that I'm going to show you stepping stones that brought me to my soul deck that has always been there, and things like that. So I do have relationships with my divination tools. It's kind of like a soul deck is kind of like when people are looking for like that special partner, you know, and sometimes we get so lost in all the fancy stuff or what we think an ideal partner should look like or be or whatever, and we don't realize that all along that person has always been there, and my soul deck has always been there. And I didn't even realize it was my soul deck. But when I started to think about the requisites of a soul deck, this deck fits all the, like, it fits all the areas. So yeah. So to start off, I started my divination journey reading water, okay, and performing divination in that way, channeling spirit, and things like that, because I do have a background in Espiritismo. So I've always grew up around having direct contact with spirit without tools and things like that, you know, with the spirits and things. So that is my background. When I went professional, because I always connected with playing cards, I just used a regular deck of playing cards you can buy at any local dollar store. Well, now it's $1.25. And another deck that I found that I love, which I feel is a piece of my soul, is this one, Dead on Paper, the Arcana playing cards. It's an infusion of like tarot, and you know, it has like the major arcana and stuff like that, you know. And it also has like your regular playing cards as well. So I like to use this for when I do spirit court investigative readings, mediumship, channeling, that kind of thing. So this is a piece of my soul. This is a soul deck too. Okay, outside of the one I'm going to talk about. So cartomancy is what led me into divination. So it will always have a special place in my heart. And it is still a very big part of my practice. Okay, so this is a deck that I love to use for, it was one of the, if I can only keep 10 decks, this was included in it. So it's very special. Okay, so cartomancy led me to divination in the first place. I remember having my first professional reading. The reader used the universal weight. Your universal weight, which I think is one of the most beautiful versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith, even though it's not like Pamela Coleman Smith's original, you know, artwork. I love it. Like, I think it's beautiful. And I remember her using this deck, and I'm like, I've never seen tarot before. I knew nothing about tarot. I was in my earlier 20s, and I was definitely at a crossroads in my life. And she predicted a bunch of things, and I was like, no, I don't see myself getting divorced. A new guy, what are you talking about? And it was a reading that we did in the house. My mom purchased a session for me through a reader that my brother had recommended. And this is the backs, which I love. And she read me with this deck. I didn't know the name of it or anything like that. I bought other versions of Rider-Waite because I didn't know there was different versions of Rider-Waite. But when I saw the devil card, I kind of didn't want to use it anymore because like the devil card scared me at the time. The devil card scared me, and the tower. Okay, and like all the naked people and the pentagram stuff and all that kind of stuff, right? With the pentacles, you know, I was like, oh, evil. So, yeah, like this symbolism here, I was like, ooh. So I kind of like pushed the deck to the side and was like, no, no, no. So I kept using cartomancy when I was working on the hotlines. And at the same time, this was my first ever like real purchase of, because when I saw the images on like social media and stuff, I was like, I'm not getting it right away. Okay. So I ended up buying this one. This is Psychic Tarot of the Heart, which is more like an oracle than an actual tarot. So I use this to read people on the hotline. I still use this deck to this day. Got rid of it, ended up getting it back. It's definitely on the top 10 of like, I'm going to keep you, and things like that. The borders, like you could do chakra work, the images, everything speaks to me. So this deck always in my collection. Okay. And I got really wonderful readings from it. Like the clients loved it and everything like that. And then this one was my first like tarot deck outside, you know, it was in a cartomancy. And I learned a lot, you know, because it has like meanings there, and I studied the meanings and things like that. And I did a lot of readings for myself with it, and, you know, things like that, family members, stuff like that. You know, the deck goes back. I still have like Doreen Virtual's name on it because I have like the older version where her name is still on it or whatever. But yeah, so you know, I learned tarot on this one, you know, and you know, for years I've used it. You know, I had other versions of it because I used this deck to the point where it got broken. Same thing for the psychic tarot, the psychic, the psychic oracle cards, and all these things. You know, and then eventually, you know, I got the Robin Wood. Then I got like a guide, you know, how to read tarot and things like that. That book is no longer in print, so I'm not going to show you. I've bought other books along the way that are good too as well. When I make membership, I'm going to talk about the books that have been the most influential for me to study tarot. So lots of tarot content coming up. Um Book reviews, all the things, like we're going to get into it. So yeah, so basically, you know, but the deck that really got me into tarot, I have to say, was the Wheel of the Year. It's why I was like, yeah, this is my soul deck. This is what really made me want to study tarot and things like that. Because I remember first getting this deck. I got it for my daughter. She loved it. I got it. I put it to the side. I had that vision, like I told you guys, and then all of a sudden, these cards like just started to speak to me. Like I didn't need a guidebook, I didn't need to study anything. Like I just got really accurate readings out the box. I was like, blah 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 blah, this is what it is, da 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 da. So this deck is very impactful because it spoke to me like no other. Like we connected. I did a whole video where I interpreted the cards and people were like, oh, I want to get this deck, like I love it, you know, and things like that. And yes, I know it has like no diversity in it. I know all the things. But yeah, this deck, you know, it just spoke to my soul, and it really got me into like, look at the Seven of Swords. Like you can see what the meaning of the Seven of Swords is just by looking at this. You know, it has kind of like a modern fairy tale. I don't know, not really talked about deck here. It's a Los Garibo. It's the Wheel of the Year. There is absolutely no diversity. That is a pet peeve that I have, but I still love this deck. It's not everybody's thing. I think somebody that watches my channel got it and they were like, this just wasn't my thing. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Like it's a deck that worked for me. Doesn't mean that it's going to speak to you, but for me it did. And I will always keep it in my collection because it made an impact in my life, you know? And things like that. Like I love the backs of this. So, and this also got me into studying paganism, and because I didn't know what pagans were. You know, I'm a voodoo sant. I'm a root worker. You know, I work the ATRs, so it's different than paganism. Those are not the same things. And so I was like, what is the Wheel of the Year and stuff like that. So this deck actually made me study for a while, like paganism, Wicca, things like that. So I got to like connect with people from different and various religious practices, and got a new respect for it, and things like that, because I do love to study other religious practices and other faith-based stuff and things like that. So this deck was it, you know. It really got me to learn about the goddesses, you know. At the time that I got this deck, I was working with the goddess Bridget. I was working with Serunos. You know, I no longer work with them, but you know, the Morrigan and things like that. You know, she was made an actual impact in my life. So, you know, I was kind of practicing on the side, not mixing it, not doing anything like that, of forms of paganism. I no longer practice that. I'm specifically more into the ATRs exclusively. But yeah, so I did that time with that, and things like that. Me and my oldest child. And so this deck made a really big impact. It also, like when someone was dying, this is the deck that I reach for. So I used it a lot too for personal. And it was just very like very deep readings that I got with it. So it will always have a special place in my heart. But I realized that it wasn't my soul deck, you know. It's not like if I could only have one deck, this is not the one deck. And this deck, I was like, you know, very strong spiritual connection to. It's the Robin, it's the Hanson Roberts, okay? Same person who colored in the Universal Weight. And this deck for years. It was a working deck. I had to have it. I've had many versions of it because I've worked with this deck to the point of beating it up. But I don't pull for it like I used to. And this deck also inspired me to study, and I love it. And it's not a sweet, like some people are like, oh, it's, it's a sweet deck or whatever. I don't read decks like that. Like, to me, despite the illustrations, if something looks uplifting or not, I can give you very blunt readings because that's just the style of reader that I am. So like the pictures doesn't really do anything. Like, oh, they look happy, so then it's a happy reading. The people that have read with me, that's not the case. Like, pictures does, I don't have to have like a creepy, scary deck to give you like a in-depth, honest reading. So I'm not an illustrative reader, if that makes sense. So but then like I don't pull for this deck as much as I used to. Like, I went through that phase for years, and I think that happens with as readers. Like, we'll be drawn to a deck, drawn, and then like our tastes change, or we shift away from it, or we find ourselves not pulling from it. So I keep this deck in my collection as well because I feel like it's a very impactful deck. Like, it got me again to really understand what my soul deck has always been. This is an oracle, so I think I'm going to, well, I'm going to mention it anyways. So these are the energy cards, energy oracle, and this is kind of like tarot too, and oracle at the same time. And I use this deck all the time too, because I went through, like I said, a phase where it was more like tarot oracle cards, and this was like, when I was using psychic oracle, then I started using this one, and it spoke to me. And it had the chakras because I was like obsessed with the chakras and all the spirit points and all this kind of stuff. And I still use this deck as well, but like this deck also pulled me into getting more and more into like tarot. Okay, it pulled me more and more into getting into tarot. This deck also, I had a vision and a dream. This one specifically I bought for my daughter. The original one that I have has gilding on the sides. I didn't want to keep messing that one up, so I got a backup copy. And for the whole, like, for some people it's Samhain, for me it's Fetgede. So for the whole Halloween season, like, I was drawn to this one and using it and things like that. Like, I love it. I love this deck. Like, love this Chariot, guys. Like, I was just drawn to this. I get amazing reading with this. This is like a seasonal deck for me. Like, it didn't do anything for my daughter, but it did something for me. And I was trying to find in the Martin Witch Tarot what I found in this deck, but I realized that this is my witchy deck. So, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. This does have a little bit more diversity than the Wheel of the Year, so that's another thing. Like, this kind of replaced that for me too. And for a long time I was like, maybe this is it, like this. But this is also a piece of my soul. This is not my soul deck. This is a piece of my soul. This is a piece of my soul. This, these decks led me to, literally to where my heart's always been. My heart has always been with Rider-Waite, if you know me. So I realized after much contemplation that all these years I've been looking for the perfect deck, and it has to have this, that, and the other. And while all those things are important, the deck that I read my clients with all the time, the deck that I keep pulling back to for myself when I just need a clean reading, that I've done mediumship with, past lives, that I've actually had, like, I was reading somebody yesterday, and I felt a couple of times like I was so in tune last night. I'm always in tune, but I'm just saying, I could feel the spirits coming on yesterday when I was doing my readings and stuff all day yesterday. And even like this morning, and I realized, like, this is the deck. Like, when I pull this deck out, I'm already connected to spirit. I'm always studying this deck. Always studying this deck. There's so much symbology. This deck actually inspired me to make like a tarot series that I'm going to offer to my members. Because there's so much symbology here. I actually want to take time to talk about the different types of symbology, all the hidden symbols. Look at the Queen of Swords. Like, she has butterflies as a crown. Like there's so much air element symbols in here. This is the most imitated deck. Like most decks that people make nowadays is based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, you know? And yes, it does lack diversity. It does, but it's like a classic, like it's kind of like a victim of its time because back then like they didn't allow for diversity. We have so much more room to do things. So but this is the deck that I connect with spirit. I have such a deep connection with Pamela Coleman Smith. I work with Lama Dama spirits. You know, I work with a lot of African ancestors and things like that. And they always like just, this is the imagery that my guides pull to. Um, and this is the cards, other than playing cards, this is the deck I use the most. This has always been my soul deck. It may not be the deck that is the most beautiful compared to like the decks that they have nowadays, or fanciest, or even inclusive, or anything like that. Like I have a whole collection of melanated decks that I use for myself. But if I'm honest, a lot of these fancier decks, I use them mostly for myself. I'm not using them on clients, you know. Sorry for like the laughing in the background. The kids are home for a snow day, so hopefully that's not too distracting for you guys, you know, and things like that. And so yeah, so basically, you know, um, this is the deck I journal with. I don't do like card pulls every single day. I don't even use my oracle decks like a lot. Like when I want a reading, I pull Cartomancy, a Rider-Waite-Smith. You know, if I want to do like a spiritual reading, I'll pull like my other more modern decks and things like that, which I love. And I think like some people, those are the ones that speak to them the most, and that's awesome. But I have to recognize that despite its imperfections, okay, despite that some people think this deck is outdated or whatever, like for me, this is a piece of my soul. All these decks, all these things that I've been trying to look for all this time, Rider-Waite-Smith has always been. It was the first deck that somebody gave me a professional reading with, and it's the deck that I keep coming back to. I have so many different versions of it because I love it. Like I've just come to accept that that's the deck that's my soul deck, and if that makes me different, you know, if that makes me like outcast to other people, because a lot of people on TarotTube don't like it, it is what it is. Like basically the point is, you know, you might be looking for a soul deck and your soul deck may have always been there the whole time, but because it doesn't fit a certain criteria, or it doesn't fit a certain aesthetics, you know, or it's a deck that most people don't like, or it's not a popular deck, you know, it's not the deck that everybody's always showing or whatever, you may be actually overlooking a really beautiful connection because you're like maybe trying to fit into the mainstream. And I've been guilty of that as well. And as time gone by, I'm just gonna be my true self. Like I like certain types of decks and they may not be the most popular or heard of. When I did my top 10, a lot of people didn't even hear about my top 10 decks, but it's who I am as a reader. My clients love my reading style. I have a beautiful, successful business. I have beautiful subscribers. Like, I don't need to be like anybody else but myself. And so, Rider-Waite-Smith is a deck that's my soul deck. All these decks led me to my soul. And my soul deck is Rider-Waite-Smith and playing cards. I love reading with playing cards. I get the best messages. When I do my Spirit Court investigative readings, oracle cards with illustration, that doesn't do anything for me. This is where I pull that information from. Like there's just something to these types of images that really speak to me and my guides. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis and book a any one of my readings and services, shamanicarawakpriestess.com. Go to my website. Also, I will see you, the ones that are going to be on my live stream, January 24th. I'm going to pick a time, so I'm going to make sure I list it either today or tomorrow. And just make sure when I set it on the community page that you click on set a reminder. It'll email you when I go live. That way you guys can be on it. And once I go live, the workshop, the classes will be on sale, and so will the memberships. And I'll be speaking more in depth about what kind of classes and things like that, and answering your questions and hanging out And so I really look forward to the live stream. Much love, much light, much blessings. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Let's have a discussion in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are about soul decks, and do you have a soul deck? Does your soul deck fit into the mainstream? Is it a controversial deck? You know, let me know. I'm really interested in hearing your guys' thoughts. Bye, guys.